This is the new Mecalac 136 MR rail excavator. So it's based on the 10 MCR, but a few significant changes compared to the 10 MCR. We have a different undercarriage, which allows electricity through the swivel joint, so we can have lorry lights, speed sensors, lorry sensors, etc. So I'll just do a quick walk around. So we'll start at the lorries on the outside here. This is the fixed end, and then we have an oscillating end on the other end. You can see on the fixed end, we've got the emergency tow hitch. There's the tow bar. And then under here, we've got our derailment bars. And I'll come around and show you the back. So same thing, got a tow hitch on this side for the emergency towing. This is the oscillating lorry. So we have a nice big oscillating pivot in the middle, and then we've got a hydraulic lockout. So that's just on a button on your joystick. So when you're heavy lifting, you can lock it out so you've got good stability, but then we've got the oscillation for when we're traveling. So they're a tri-gauge hydrostatic rail excavator. So they're very easy to change gauge. It's one of the big selling points. And for you guys, it's a fantastic advantage to have. Currently it's set up as standard gauge. To get narrow or broad gauge, so all three gauges, all we need to do is change out this flange. So we rattle off the wheel, take that off, swip it around, or put the other flange on, depending on what gauge you're trying to go to, and rattle it back on, and then tighten them up with a tension wrench. They're also isolated on each corner, and then we have a small little strap to connect between the components if you do not want isolation on that corner. So all four isolated, and you can put the strap on depending on what you need to do with your signals. So the undercarriage, like I said before, is different than the 10 MCR. That we actually lift the machine up a little bit to have more room inside the swivel area for an electric swivel joint. The electric swivel joint gives us the lorry lights, and it gives a speed sensor on the wheels. The speed sensor on the wheels is fantastic because if you're working in a tunnel, you lose GPS signal, so you don't actually know what speed you're traveling. And if you're at a limited speed, it makes it hard to maintain that. So we derive our speed directly off the motors, so we don't need a GPS signal to know what speed we're going and to limit the speed. We also have electric sensors for the lorry up and down positions. With the lorry lights, they're direction changing. So if you're traveling forwards, of course they're attached to the bottom, they're not attached to the top, so the top of the machine can be rotated in any direction. But if you're traveling in this direction, the front lights here will be white and the rear lights will be red. If you start traveling backwards, they'll switch, so then this side will be red and the other side will be white. So that's automatic, you don't have to worry about that. The other advantage that we have by lifting up a little bit, we can fit these Roadliner tracks. So they're steel chain with the rubber molded grouser plates. So different than the 10 MCR, we can't quite fit these on. They are quite smooth still at the 9 kilometers per hour travel speed. So we still get our nice travel speed, but we got the full rail, we've got this durability and extra weight down low. And coming around the machine on the auxiliary circuit. So we add an additional circuit onto the rail machine. So I'll show you that on the control valve, which is in here. It's a really nice layout. You can access everything really easy to work on. So in here, we've got an additional sandwich. This is a full flow, high flow auxiliary sandwich. So we have our main auxiliary, and then we have an EngCon sandwich. So we control that with the EngCon double feeder, and that runs new lines along the boom, and it comes down straight into the EngCon. That leaves us with the main circuit. So if you're using an undercutter or other high flow attachments, you can still make use of your tilt rotator while you're flowing the main circuit to it. So an independent circuit for the tilt rotator, independent circuit for the high flow. Then we've got a low flow circuit, and then we've got our big case drain here. So this is a massive line that runs straight back to tank. We've got it set up with a little coupling for just case drain use, but you can make use of this for full flow if you need it for special attachments as well. On the EngCon, we still have our extra 2 circuit, and the extra 1 circuit's being used by the grab. You could drop the grab off, and then you'll have 1 circuit, 2 circuits, 3 circuits, 4 independent circuits, plus the tilt rotator. So in theory, 5 circuits, but you'll have enough circuits for everything that you need, and you've got the case drain as well. Coming back into here, we've got our rail horn forward facing, and we also have a rear facing horn, which which is, you can see in there tucked away. That's the auto greaser. So that auto greases the whole boom, but not the bucket linkage area. So this is still manual grease. That can get upgraded if you really like, but more lines in around this area seem to get damaged quite easily on auto grease. So everything else is auto greased and you do this manually. Same with the tilt rotator. Coming back in here, we've got the emergency electric pump. So that's for in an emergency, if we have a problem, you switch over to this pump and it'll allow you to move the machine and get off the rail. You've got isolators in here, hydraulic cooling fan, big radiator, makes your coolant overflow bottle. And we come around. These steps are for when you're down on rail and you want to get easier access to the engine. They're on there, but they can be unbolted if you want to get your visibility better. So I'll show you that on the other side. So Deutz water-cooled motor. We've got over here fuel filters, and that's our diesel tank. And I'll pop around here and you can see here, the lorries come a long way up. So this helps you get on and off rail really well. And then when you're all the way down, you know, you can see over that quite easily, but that's easily unbolted if you prefer. The tilt rotator that we recommend is the Engcon. This is a EC209 detachable. So you've got your lifting eye here. You can drop all of this extra weight off and then use the strength of the machine for lifting what you need to lift rather than having to lift the tilt rotator all the time. Also fantastic for narrow trenching and also really heavy work. So if you've got really good breakout, tough ground that you need good breakout, drop the tilt rotator off, put your attachments directly on. Same hitch, top and bottom, so you can use the attachments with and without. Also, because it's based on an MCR, we can still run all our skid steer attachments. So any skid steer attachment, you can use the skid adapter and run on the machine, and we recommend that you drop the tilt rotator off for that because the maximum width on the tilt rotator is about 1300 mil recommended. In the cab, very similar just to your standard 10 MCR. We've got our standard machine screen. We've got an additional screen here for the height and slew limiter system. And then we've got emergency stop, battery isolator, and then we've got our hitch control panel. So that's just to control the tilt rotator hitch, top and bottom. And then we've got our mode selection. So you've got excavator bucket, rail mode, skid steer mode. So that just lets you to use joystick steering for traveling around. We can still do 9 kilometers an hour travel speed, and then 20 kilometers an hour when you're on the rail. So fantastic fast machine still while you're off rail. So twice the speed of a normal excavator. Fantastic for getting from A to B quickly, and it's hydrostatic, so it skips around on the ground. Not as well as the rubber tracks, but still pretty good. The rubber tracks are a lot smoother, just like why you don't see steel tracks on a track loader. The 136, we need the durability of the track, so we do lose a little bit of that skipping around speed because of them. So that's why the standard MCRs run a rubber track. Then we've got our controls for the screen, start stop button, aircon controls. These are just machine controls, continuous flow switch, auto idle, wipers, lights, etc. We've got a radio. Our Engcon computer is here, and this is our height and slew limiter system behind that little panel there. And then on here we've got our charts, lift charts for all four. Because we're tri-gauge, you've got narrow, standard and broad, and then also when you're not on the rail as well. And then a quick information sheet shows you what filters and whatnot are required. We've got what's called a dead man switch for the lorries. So on here you've got your lorry control, like a blade lever. This does the front and back, and then when you hold this button down, this does the front lorry. Hold the button down, it does the rear lorry. But in order to activate that around here, you need to hold down this switch with your left hand, and then you use your right hand on this knob lever so that you can activate the lorries. The screen will be alarming at you if the lorry is not all the way down or all the way up. That's the requirement of the AS7502. So that's programmed in, ready to go. It's really easy. Drive up onto your rail situation, lower the lorries down both sides, and then to enter the rail mode we need to put a pin. So very simple, but we just pin across the two levers so that we can't turn independently. Then we've got our travel backwards and forwards when we're in rail mode. Again, if you've lowered down the rail lorries for any reason this will be alarming at you. So you need to make sure that lorries are all the way down and that pin is in, so that we get into rail mode. When we're in rail mode, it's very similar to any other machine. So just using the boom and slew, your height and slew limiter system has the wall and the ceiling. There is options for RCI if you require it, but most people don't like the RCI. So just height and slew limiter, which is adjustable through the screen. The advantage of the Mecalac machine for rail is our boom. So the dipstick cylinder is underslung, as you can see, it's not on top. And our second two-piece boom here, it has a lot more range of angle than a standard machine. So if you get a two-piece boom standard excavator, the problem is that you're still on a swing tower out the front. So the boom will come back, but only vertical here. It can't come back, otherwise you'll hit the cab because you can swing. The 136MR boom comes all the way back, actually just past the cab. So all of this boom is actually counterweight. So if you're lifting from here, that's your pivot point on the rail, 75% of your boom weight is actually counterweight, whereas a standard excavator would have your swing tower here and boom coming out, and not much of that boom is helping as counterweight. So that's a good reason why this machine can lift up to 4 ton in the right position. As you stretch out, you've got really good reach because of this angle that almost straightens all the way out, and as it travels out, of course the lifting capacity reduces as you get further, like any excavator. For the machine's got offset, of course, but in rail mode we have that locked out. So we've got this lockout bar. That's for your height and slew limiter system, so that it doesn't become too complicated. And most of the time with the tilt rotator, you won't be using the offset anyway. So we've got the Roadliner tracks, as we've said before. Okay, any questions, let us know. Thanks, guys.